The vampire squid rises through black water, wearing a cloak, red eyes, and a name built for attack. Its arms spread into a webbed canopy, while pale spines appear along the dark inner surface. The image suggests a blood-feeding hunter, yet direct evidence reveals a markedly different animal. Vampiroteuthis infernalis is neither a true vampire nor a typical squid pursuing large prey. It lives in deep, oxygen-poor layers where energetic chases would be difficult to sustain. Its feeding apparatus gathers drifting organic debris, often called marine snow. That contrast between theatrical appearance and modest diet drives the investigation. Every feature that looks menacing must be tested against observed behavior, anatomy, and stomach contents. The supposed fangs are harmless cirri, fleshy projections associated with the arms. The cloak is a membrane joining the arms, useful for handling food and defensive display. Its dark coloration can appear black or reddish, depending on illumination and depth. If you expect a predator's rush, the animal instead reveals patience, economy, and careful collection. The mystery becomes ecological rather than monstrous. How does debris support life in a hostile layer? Verified observations show a specialist using long filaments to harvest scattered particles. The opening silhouette remains dramatic, but its actions rewrite the meaning of every visible feature. Vampire squid inhabit tropical and temperate oceans, commonly within oxygen minimum zones at depth. These layers form where respiration consumes oxygen faster than circulation, and photosynthesis can replace it. Many active predators avoid the lowest concentrations because powerful swimming demands efficient oxygen delivery. Vampire squid possess respiratory pigment with high oxygen affinity and a large gill surface relative to body mass. Their metabolism is unusually low, reducing oxygen requirements in water that challenges many competitors. Soft, watery tissues and ammonium ions contribute to near-neutral buoyancy. Neutral buoyancy lets the animal hover without continually spending energy to resist sinking. Broad fins provide controlled propulsion, while the mantle performs less forceful jetting than many active squids. 2 retractile filaments extend well beyond the 8 webbed arms. These filaments are homologous to a modified arm pair, a distinctive feature of vampire squid anatomy. Hair-like sensory structures and adhesive mucus help them collect organic particles from surrounding water. Marine snow includes decaying material, fecal pellets, molts, mucus, and tiny organisms sinking from above. The squid draws a coated filament inward and transfers gathered material toward its mouth. Arm suckers and cirri manipulate the mucus-bound particles into manageable masses. This Q-action consequence sequence has been documented in aquaria and supported by digestive evidence. The diet can include both detrital particles and small living components trapped within that material. Calling the animal exclusively passive would therefore oversimplify a flexible but low-energy feeding strategy. Its weak beak and feeding behavior do not match the image of a large prey killer. Stomach and fecal analyses reinforce the importance of aggregated organic matter. The animal converts dilute falling debris into body tissue in a habitat with limited conventional prey. That ability links productive surface waters to deep oxygen-poor communities. It also explains why remaining still can be more successful than relentless pursuit. The frightening name survives, but the verified context has already changed its story. The next question is whether its defensive displays are attacks or methods for avoiding attack. When disturbed, a vampire squid may invert its webbed arms over the body. This posture exposes rows of cirri and suckers while shielding the head and mantle. Dark arm surfaces and pale tips create contrast that may confuse an approaching predator. The display is called the pineapple posture, a descriptive label rather than evidence of aggression. A tactile or visual threat provides the cue. Inversion follows, and vulnerable tissues become covered. The consequence is protection, without the oxygen cost of a long, high-speed escape. The squid can also release glowing mucus from arm tips instead of producing a dark ink cloud. In black water, conventional ink would offer little visual concealment. Bioluminescent particles can persist around the attacker, potentially distracting it while the squid moves away. You can see light as spectacle, but its adaptive value lies in buying distance cheaply. The animal also possesses light-producing organs that can regulate brightness and duration. These photophores may disrupt its outline or create misleading points of attention. Specific predator responses remain difficult to observe during natural encounters. Laboratory disturbance demonstrates capacity, while ecological function still requires cautious interpretation. Its reddish eyes look conspicuous under lamps, but red wavelengths disappear rapidly in seawater. At natural depth, the body may appear dark against a nearly lightless background. Eye size supports sensitivity to dim blue light, including bioluminescent signals. There is no evidence that the eyes hypnotize prey or serve any supernatural function. Even the scientific name, meaning vampire squid from hell, records human imagination rather than feeding ecology. The oxygen minimum zone offers refuge because fewer fast predators can tolerate prolonged exposure there. However, low oxygen also constrains the squid, making metabolic thrift essential rather than optional. Temperature matters because warmer water raises metabolic demand while generally holding less oxygen. The animal's distribution may follow a narrow combination of oxygen, temperature, food flux, and life stage. Brief observations cannot reveal how individuals navigate changes across day, season, or region. Captured animals may behave differently under pressure change, bright light, and unfamiliar boundaries. The strongest conclusion remains modest. Its dominant known feeding mode is debris collection, not blood hunting. That feeding strategy gives the vampire squid a distinctive place in deep carbon pathways. Surface plankton grow, particles sink, a filament gathers them, and carbon enters the squid's tissues. The squid may then become prey for fishes, whales, or other deep-diving consumers. Energy moves through the food web without requiring the squid to chase large animals. Its fecal material and discarded mucus may continue sinking, redistributing nutrients at greater depths. By occupying low-oxygen water, it accesses food where many competitors cannot remain active. This refuge depends on physiological adaptation, but it is not free from environmental change. Expanding oxygen minimum zones could enlarge suitable low oxygen layers while compressing other ecological boundaries. Whether vampire squid benefit depends on temperature, food supply, predators, and tolerable oxygen thresholds. Ocean warming may raise metabolic pressure even where low oxygen excludes competitors. Scientists need regional observations before projecting gains or losses for the species. The animal's slow lifestyle also complicates captivity and the interpretation of short behavioral trials. Feeding behavior becomes meaningful when particles, filament extension, retrieval, and ingestion are all documented. Defensive behavior requires a known disturbance cue and an observed outcome, not a dramatic still image. You learn more from the sequence than from the frightening posture isolated in a photograph. That principle separates the animal's ecology from the mythology carried by its common name. Future work can follow individuals using low-light vehicles that minimize disturbance and preserve natural darkness. Long observations could measure how often filaments deploy and which particles trigger retrieval. Particle imaging could compare available marine snow with material actually selected by the squid. Oxygen and temperature sensors should accompany behavior records because physiology defines the habitat. Repeated natural predator encounters would test whether glowing mucus distracts, marks, or merely startles attackers. High-resolution footage could reveal how cirri and suckers package fragile particles before ingestion. Observations across juvenile and adult stages may show changes in depth, diet, and defensive choices. Reproductive study is also incomplete, despite evidence that females can spawn repeatedly over extended periods. That pattern differs from the single terminal spawning familiar in many cephalopods. Its slow pace may permit repeated reproductive investment, but field confirmation remains limited. Population surveys could show whether oxygen boundaries concentrate animals or separate life stages. If you return to the first black silhouette, the cloak now reads as a protective and feeding surface. The pale projections become sensory cirri, while the long filaments become collectors of falling food. Its lights remain defenses with unresolved details, not weapons proving an attack. The verified animal is stranger than the legend because it survives through restraint. Low metabolism, efficient oxygen use, buoyancy, and detritus feeding form one coherent deep-sea strategy. Uncertainty remains around migration, reproduction, predator interactions, and responses to changing oxygen zones. None of those gaps restores the blood-feeding predator imagined by its name. The vampire squid closes its cloak in darkness, conserving life rather than stalking victims.